Okay, I think everyone's had a chance to join now, so I'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the PPMA Showcase webinar. My name is Sam. I'm one of the Associate Directors at Opus People Solutions. As a recruitment managed service who are wholly owned by the public sector, we were delighted to sponsor the award for Best Health and Wellbeing Initiative at this year's PPMA Awards. And for those of you that were there, what a wonderful evening of celebration it was as well. The well-being of our staff as an organisation, but also the well-being of the workforce that we place is a key value of ours and something that's intrinsic to everything that we do. So I'm even more delighted to be able to pass you over to the very worthy winners of the award, Lincolnshire County Council, with Deborah and Gail taking us through their presentation. So Deborah, over to you.
Thank you for that introduction. So just going to introduce myself. So my name is Debbie Aaron. So I'm a HR business partner with Lincolnshire County Council, and I'm joined by my colleague Gail Hewitt, who's our senior employee support and counselling person. So we're just going to take you through a few slides. So I don't know if there's a delay on the slides. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lovely picture there. Accepting the award. Perhaps go to the next slide. I think these first ones are just really some introduction and setting scene ones. Yeah, so if we go on to the next one, I think that starts on the background really. Right, so just to give away a bit of an introduction, so the County Council, we've got about, say, 5,000 employees, and that's across a range of services that you would expect, sort of highways, plays, children's services, adult social services, and backhouse services like finance, HR, etc. So we've got a quite wide range of services. And since COVID, we've worked really in a hybrid way. So majority of the staff, I would say, work from home for quite a bit of the time and do come into the office on a regular basis. But obviously, we've still got some frontline staff who are out sort of in the community on a daily basis. So we've got a bit of a mix, really. So that obviously does pose a bit of an issue in terms of how we communicate with staff and how we provide the best services for them. So mental health support, as with many of you, has been one of the key sort of objectives of the council for a number of years. We're very lucky to have our own in-house employee support and counselling team. So I joined the council about 30 years ago, and they already had that in-house team. So that's a very well long-established team that we've got in place. Until recently, we had Gail as the senior counsellor, one other full-time counsellor, and then two part-time counsellors. So quite a small team, really, given the size of the organisation that we are. But we don't buy in any EAP support from elsewhere. We really make the most of the in-house counselling team that we've got. And all of those counsellors are members of the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy. That's the BACP. And we've always had really, really positive feedback in terms of the one-to-one counselling support that they provide. But it became apparent, I think, that obviously we listened to feedback from our managers and our employees about what other issues there might be or what else we could do in terms of supporting our staff. So it became apparent really that there was a lot of skills within that counselling team, and we could actually use that to solve some of those issues that had been raised. So some of the issues that were raised, which we'll go on to talk about in a minute, are things like support for grief and loss, things like trauma support, making the most of the resources that the counselling team have got. So we've put in place a number of initiatives, to support those things. So as it says there, we had a real increase in the volume of referrals, I think in 2021, 22. So we really decided to look at what we could do in terms of shaping the resources that we already had and try and provide that more broader support to staff, and also look at more preventative support, not just reactive support. So we actually appointed Gail as the senior counsellor and actually looked at expanding the number of counsellors that we had. Gail is also a key member of our health and wellbeing project team. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we've got a number of people from across the organisation, not just HR. We work with colleagues in public health, with representative managers from different services, and also Gail and our health and safety colleagues, to try and obviously gather as much information as we can across the council, and also look at that we're providing solutions that are really fit for purpose. So that's just really a bit of background in terms of where we are. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the first things that we did was actually looking at how we could actually utilise best the support that we'd already got in place. So we provide clients with up to 6 sessions of one-to-one counselling. But of course, sometimes, you've got somebody who's, sick and has to cancel an appointment, or somebody's on holiday. So we wanted to really make the most of all the available counselling slots that we have. So one thing that we did look was at utilising those cancellation slots and offering a one-off wellbeing check to staff. So with the hope really that sometimes staff might not need that full 6 sessions, and it might be that they just need that relatively quick one-off session to really sort of get things off the chest, talk through with somebody who can really signpost them to more help and support. And then that might be sufficient for them. And also, obviously, it makes better use of our resources. So that was one of the first things that we did in terms of widening the scope of our service. So if we go into the next slide, please. So I think I'm going to hand over to Gail now, who's going to talk about some of the other things that we did.
Thank you, Debbie. Yes, so like Debbie says, we've tried to expand the service, looking at preventative rather than reactive incentives. We also noticed quite an increase in people referring into the counselling service with anxiety, and we just looked into it a bit deeper, looked at the age range and things like that. And we noticed that we felt, at least, that there was a bit of a sort of flow to this, and that we felt that menopause or menopausal symptoms were definitely starting to present quite a lot. So it's something that we looked into. So 2-3 years ago now, this has been going, and we've developed the menopause support, in quite a large way now. But initially, we started off with menopause cafes. So they are pre-booked cafes, attendance of 8 to 10 people on Teams. We hold them. Male and female are encouraged to join. So it's about talking about your personal experience, about learning. So, obviously even male employees, they are affected by the menopause in one way or the other, whether that's a colleague, whether that's somebody they live with. So we really have tried to make this very inclusive for everybody to attend. So they are booked. We offer them every 4 weeks, and people come on, join the cafe, talk about their experiences, and it's a fantastic feedback from that. Once you've attended a cafe, we then have a private Teams channel that people can attend. So they're on there. They can so when we're chatting in the cafes, people will often say, "Oh, have you tried this?" or "Have you tried that?" It could be herbal remedies. It could be like a support network or website, anything like that. So we encourage people to put all them on the Teams chat so that anybody and everybody can have a look. And we've got about 150 members on there now. And that is a private channel for anybody that's just attended the cafes. We then sort of thought we need to sort of build on this a bit more, because it's such a high, important sort of thing within the workplace. And looking at our statistics, there's 69% of our employees are female. And of that 69%, 68% are of the age between 45 and 60. And that's a bit of a stereotypical age range. So that's a bare minimum, because obviously you get people that have premature menopause, surgical menopause. So when we look at sort of our numbers, that's a massive chunk of our workforce that are affected by the menopause themselves, let alone, like I say, the people on the outside that are working with these people that, need that understanding. So with all that in mind, and like I say, because it's such a vast area of employees, we looked into doing drop-in sessions. So it's not too much time out of the working day. We do 30-minute drop-in sessions, try and keep it around lunchtime. And they're facilitated by our colleagues that have attended menopause cafes, that have got a real interest in it, that, have sort of done a bit of research and things like that. So they're experts by, their own personal experiences. and they hold them on behalf of us, and they're offered every 2 weeks. And we do them a bit more subject-led, so they could be on sleep, they could be on weight gain, they could be on hot flushes, anything like that, really. And we listen to the feedback and obviously expand that depending on what people are asking for. So they've been really well received again. And then we also have developed an e-learning. So myself and a colleague have produced an e-learning that anybody can obviously have access to. So again, we encourage managers and people like that to have access to. There's a little bit on there for managers on how they can support their staff. We have menopause guidance as well. So again, on there, there's things that, could be symptoms and how in a workplace that could be supported, or even at home, and things like that. So we've got a really, really comprehensive menopause cover and support system in place. And then we ask for feedback after the cafes and after the drop-in sessions on Microsoft eForms, and it's really, really good feedback from that. So we know that it's growing. So we know that it's something that, is really well received and really does need to sort of stay in place and probably keep evolving as and when we feel it necessary. Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So another incentive we decided to look at was grief and loss. So obviously that can affect everybody at some stage in their life. It can look so different for everybody. It's such a unique experience. Loss doesn't necessarily have to be death. It can be loss of a job, loss of a friendship, relationships, things like that. So we realised that this is an area that we need to look at. So we put on about every 2 to 3 months a presentation, we call it, because it's quite an emotive subject. We've avoided doing support groups just mainly because, you're on Teams, you're not necessarily there to support as such. It doesn't feel personal enough. So we decided a presentation was probably more appropriate. So we offer these presentations out, really well received, great feedback. And they are for about 45 minutes. They're presented by 2 of my team members who have got quite a lot of experience within this field. And then there is a Q&A afterwards if people want, or they can ping us an email, put on the Teams chat, and we'll contact them privately afterwards if they feel that they need support. So the support is there, but we just didn't feel that we wanted to open it up as a support group because, as you can imagine, it's a really big subject and it can, be really emotive. So, but again, they are really well received, and it is something that we'd like to probably put on a bit more regular if resources allow that. So can we have the next slide, please? I think I'm handing back over to Debbie.
Yeah. So another thing that, again, we listened to what managers were reporting to us in terms of the sort of support that they would like. And obviously we've got frontline roles within the council. So they might have to experience, for example, the death of a service user, or, we've had instances where sort of a colleague has died suddenly, and obviously that has a massive impact on the team that work with them. So it was really about what could we do to support that manager and those employees, and hopefully, to prevent sort of PTSD. So we did look at various options on this in terms of buying in specialist support through NHS colleagues and things. But again, we decided that actually we felt we had the skills in-house really to develop something ourselves. So we actually sent some of the counsellors on some PTSD prevention training, and then actually sort of Gail led on this in terms of providing a trauma pathway framework. So it's really just about and she sort of produced sort of written guidance, but also a short video as well, which talks managers through the sort of steps to take. So it's really just about reassuring managers about what they need to do in sort of the immediate aftermath if there's been some sort of traumatic event, because we often found that managers were lacking confidence. They were obviously wanting to look after their employees, had their employees' best interests at heart, but they would often sort of ring the counselling service, sort of saying, this person needs to see a counsellor ASAP, etc. I don't know what to do, and sometimes that's not necessarily the best course of action for that person. They need time to process the trauma and maybe talk to peers, etc. So we actually sort of put something together which helps reassure them that this is the steps that they need to take. And we've had really good feedback that managers have found that really helpful and they feel supported. So, we feel that we've really sort of been able to sort of fulfill that need really that managers felt they needed. Okay, next slide, please. Something else which again has sort of been high on the agenda is in terms of suicide prevention training. So obviously, although our colleagues, and counsellors have perhaps dealt with this before, we actually put them through the Assist Suicide Prevention training, and we actually do some regular promotion about that to all staff. And also, so that that's the suicide prevention, but then more generally, obviously about promotion of the counselling service. We do obviously try and mention it in induction. We do something specifically with our new apprentices. We try and regularly get a slot on our corporate leadership team briefings just to keep sort of things in people's minds. And we have sort of weekly bulletins from the chief exec, and we work very closely with our colleague in comms in terms of getting regular articles on there. We've refreshed the intranet pages that we have on the counselling service. So there is a lot of information on there, and we try and obviously set it out in an attractive and easy to use format. So we really do try and keep sort of health and well-being, in general, as well as the work that the counselling team do on the agenda all the time, and keep reminding people about what is out there and what services are available for them. Next slide, please. So as we've said, I think I mentioned previously, we have a sort of core project group, which is made up of different representatives from across the council. And we think that's worked really well in terms of gaining that feedback and getting, sort of those issues brought to light, which may be affecting colleagues across the council. We've also worked quite closely with the Lincolnshire's of health and social care system. And we have been able to sort of share some of the presentations and work that we've done, and they've been able to share some of the work that they've been doing as well, and some of the workshops and things that they've been doing. Our colleagues have been able to attend those as well, and we think that's worked really well. Unfortunately, the Wellbeing Hub that they set up is no longer in place because they didn't have the funding to continue it with it. But we did find that worked very successfully, and we do still let the NHS staff join our webinars where appropriate. So we're quite proud that we're able to do that and work in partnership with them. Next slide, please. Is this me, Gail, or is this you? Still me. So we've talked a lot about obviously how we've developed the counselling service. So obviously that's a very significant part of our health and wellbeing. But obviously, just to mention some other things that we've got in place, we've also got weekly mindfulness sessions. We do online resilience workshops with a practitioner that we've worked with for quite a while. As with many organisations, we've got a group of mental health first aiders. And as I mentioned before, obviously a big part of the whole health and wellbeing offer is keeping that communication going. So we've obviously got the intranet site where we do try and keep promoting things all the time. And we also do look at other aspects of health and wellbeing. We work with an organisation called One You Lincolnshire, who are commissioned by our public health team. And as well as sort of the general support they provide on things like stopping smoking, reducing drinking, weight management, etc. We also do at least one, sometimes a couple of initiatives each year about promoting increased physical activity things, and they obviously go down really well with staff, especially the competitive element, which I think they quite like. So those are some of the other things that we do as well. Next slide, please.
I think this is me now, thank you. So like I said before, we try and evaluate our services so that we can gain what people really want from them. The biggest way the employer support and counselling team do that is we use the Microsoft eForms now, which are nice and easy to do. As far as the counselling, so our one-to-one counselling service and like the one-off wellbeing sessions, we send them out after the process, so after the 6th session or after the wellbeing session via email, because they're sort of one-to-one processes. With regards to the grief and loss and the menopause cafes, the drop-ins, anything else that we do, we send them out. We tend to put them in the chat as whilst we're doing it, because trying to get people to engage and actually fill them out. We feel that whilst, if it's in the chat whilst we're doing the actual session, or just polite reminder at the end, people will actually fill them out. So it's about trying to get people to engage in doing that. But when they do, obviously we take what feedback they give us and use that to decide how we move forward. And just to say, since we've won the award, we have introduced seated yoga as well. So we do another drop-in session where that's every 2 weeks. It's just a new incentive. We've only done a couple up to now. But one of our team members are a qualified therapeutic yoga teacher, I think it is. It's a qualification anyway. And she does a 30-minute at lunchtime, sort of at the end of the working day, beginning of the working day. We're playing about with the times to, again, see what the feedback is as to which time of day is the best. But she does a seated yoga, so you're at your desk. So it's, hopefully helping to people to relax, either get into the working day or come out of the working day. So we're always looking at new ways to expand the service, and also our skill set within our team. We've got such a varied skill set that, I think it's important that we all have our time to shine. So, if anybody's bringing something new, we're looking at that, and we're hoping to, develop that as well. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is just some of the feedback that we get. So there's one from the actual counselling service, one from the menopause cafe, and one from the grief and loss. Hopefully you can read those, but they are just literally a snapshot of what we get. Obviously, you want the positive feedback, but it's nice to hear that we are actually hitting the mark of what people want. And like we've kept saying all the way through the presentation, we've listened to what our employees want, and that's what we're trying to offer, basically. I think that's it. Next slide, please. So, yeah, is there any questions or any feedback or anything?
I can see that we've got one question from Paula about how difficult it is to engage with operational men. So do we have any specific monthly items or initiatives for men that you could share? Well, Gail's mentioned we do some men-only menopause cafes. We also, I can't think in detail, but as part of a health and wellbeing project, we do have a representative from the communications team. So we do try, we obviously do, she also puts together like a yearly calendar of different the national health days and things. So I know she has done some particularly about things like prostate cancer and some other men's health issues and things. We've done that, but I can't think of anything else particularly that we've done about targeting men.
No,
Can you?
It is really hard to get the male employees to engage, although we have had a couple on the cafes, and they've engaged really well. We do a men-only menopause drop-in session, and there's a thing called andropause. Not sure if any of you heard of it or not. So we've sort of touched on that as well. Yeah, we try to. I think it's that of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it, so to speak. So I think we're always looking, and if anybody's got any ideas, we'd grab it as well. But no, nothing more specific than that at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for attending.
Yeah, there's no other questions on the chat, so unless anybody else has got any other questions.
I was just going to ask, would you mind sharing contact details just for just to contact in future, just for ideas and benchmarking?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What's the best way to do that, Debbie?
I can put my email in the.
Oh yeah, sure.
Chat,
do that, and then I'll email you, and then you'll have my email.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was really interesting today. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that went all right, didn't it? Babbling a bit, but